Before we begin, take one quick second to help this channel grow. Subscribe right now, press like, and tell us in the comments what you think about this story. Your voice matters, and thousands of people are reading those comments every day. Tonight, something happened on live television that could change the entire future of American politics. For 37 straight minutes, one man spoke calmly, clearly, and without fear. And by the time he finished, the political ground under President Donald Trump was shaking. The man was Mark Carney, a quiet voice in global finance, a former central banker, a man who rarely raises his voice. But when he sat down on American television this week, he did something no one expected. He laid out a simple argument, and it landed like a thunderbolt. Carney did not shout. He did not attack with insults. Instead, he explained step by step how the policies now coming from the White House could trigger consequences that many Americans have not yet been told about. Markets listened, politicians listened, but most important of all, ordinary Americans listened. Because Carney spoke in a way people could understand. He talked about jobs, he talked about debt, he talked about trust, and he asked one question that is now echoing across Washington tonight. What happens when the world stops trusting America's leadership? That question hit like a hammer. For years, the United States has held a special place in the global system. Investors trusted it. Allies relied on it. Markets believed its word. But Carney warned that something dangerous may now be happening. He said the signals coming from the Trump administration are starting to shake that trust. And when trust disappears, power follows it out the door. Those words spread across social media in minutes. The clips of the interview exploded online. Commentators started asking the same question. Did America just witness the moment the global financial world turned against Trump? Because what Carney described was not a small disagreement. He described a chain reaction. One decision leading to another. Markets reacting. Allies pulling back. Investors moving money somewhere else. And if that chain reaction begins, even the President of the United States cannot easily stop it. That is why Washington is suddenly paying very close attention. Because 37 minutes on television may have just started a political earthquake, and the shockwaves are only beginning. To understand why this interview is causing such panic in political circles tonight, people need to understand who Mark Carney really is. He is not a television personality. He is not a political activist. He is one of the most respected financial leaders in the modern world. Carney once led the Bank of Canada. Later, he became the head of the Bank of England, guiding Britain through one of its most unstable economic periods. When global markets panic, people like Carney are the ones leaders call for advice. That is why his words carry weight. And on American television, he made something very clear. He said the economic direction of the Trump presidency is creating deep uncertainty across the world. He explained that investors do not just look at numbers, they look at signals. Signals about stability, signals about alliances, signals about whether the United States will remain a predictable partner. Carney said those signals are now mixed. Some are flashing red. He pointed to rising national debt. He pointed to growing trade fights. He pointed to sudden policy changes that arrive overnight and shock markets. And he warned that this kind of instability does not stay inside Washington. It spreads. Banks react. Investors move money. Countries begin protecting themselves. Carney explained it in simple words. When the world's largest economy starts sending confusing signals, everyone else starts preparing for trouble. And that preparation alone can slow growth, slow hiring, slow investment. That is the dangerous cycle he described. And as he spoke, the host asked a question many viewers were already thinking. Was Carney saying the Trump presidency could trigger a global financial shift? Carney paused. Then he gave an answer that stunned the studio. He said the world is already preparing for that possibility. Not tomorrow. Not years from now. Right now. That moment is the one people are replaying again and again tonight. Because if global leaders truly believe that, the political consequences inside America could be enormous. Here's the part that made Washington truly nervous. Carney did not just talk about economic numbers. He talked about reputation. And reputation is something money cannot easily buy back. For decades, the United States held a powerful advantage in the world. It was not just the size of the economy, it was trust. The governments trusted American leadership. Markets trusted American stability. Even rivals trusted that America followed clear rules. But during the interview, Carney explained something many economists have been whispering privately for months. That trust may be weakening. He said allies are quietly asking new questions. What if American policy changes overnight again? What if trade deals disappear suddenly? What if political battles inside Washington make long-term agreements impossible? When those doubts grow, countries start planning alternatives. They look for new trade partners. They move parts of their financial systems elsewhere. They reduce dependence on the United States. Carney warned that these shifts do not happen loudly. They happen quietly. A bank moves a fund. The government signs a new agreement. An investor chooses a different market. Each move seems small, but together they slowly reshape the global economy. And once that shift begins, it becomes extremely hard to reverse. That is why analysts watching the interview immediately understood the gravity of what he was saying. Carney was not predicting one bad policy decision. He was describing a long-term erosion of American influence, a slow loss of the advantage the United States has held since the end of World War II. And if that erosion continues under President Trump, the political fallout could be massive. Because Americans care deeply about one thing above all else: strength. Strength of the economy. Strength of leadership. Strength of America's position in the world. Carney's warning suggested those pillars may now be under pressure. And that idea alone is sending shockwaves through Washington tonight. But the most explosive moment of the interview came near the end. That is when Carney addressed something even more sensitive: the stability of the American dollar. For generations, the dollar has been the backbone of the global economy. Countries trade with it. Banks hold it. Governments rely on it as the safest place to store wealth. This system gives the United States enormous power, but it also depends on confidence. And confidence can disappear faster than people expect. During the interview, Carney explained that if political instability continues inside the United States, some countries may accelerate efforts to reduce their dependence on the dollar. That statement instantly grabbed attention across financial media, because this is not a theory anymore. Several nations are already exploring alternative systems, new payment networks, new trade agreements that bypass the dollar, new alliances built around regional currencies. For years, those ideas moved slowly, but Carney warned that political chaos can speed them up dramatically. If global leaders start believing that American policy is unpredictable, they will protect themselves. And protection means diversification. Less reliance on Washington, more reliance on regional partnerships. That shift would not destroy the dollar overnight, but it could slowly weaken the unique power the United States holds. And that power is deeply connected to the presidency itself, because every American president benefits from the strength of the dollar. If that strength begins to fade, political blame arrives quickly. That is why some analysts now say Carney's interview may have delivered one of the most damaging warnings any global financial leader has ever given about a sitting American president. And it happened live, in front of millions of viewers, with no filters, no spin, just a calm voice explaining what may already be unfolding behind the scenes. Now the political reaction is beginning. Inside Washington, aides connected to President Donald Trump are scrambling to respond. Some officials say Carney exaggerated the risks. Others argue that strong economic growth will silence critics. But privately, many insiders understand the deeper problem. Carney did not speak as a political opponent. He spoke as a financial authority. And when someone with that level of credibility raises alarms, global markets listen. Already, economists are debating his warnings on television panels. Some agree completely. Others say the American economy is stronger than critics admit. But one thing is undeniable. The interview has forced a new conversation into the open. Is the Trump presidency strengthening America's global leadership? Or is it quietly weakening it? That debate is now spreading far beyond Washington. Business leaders are asking questions. International allies are watching closely. Investors are studying every signal coming from the White House. Because in the modern world, political power and economic confidence are tightly connected. Lose one, and the other can follow. Carney's message was simple but powerful. America's strength depends not only on military power or political dominance, it depends on trust. Trust from markets, trust from allies, trust from ordinary citizens who believe the system is stable. If that trust cracks, even the most powerful presidency can face enormous pressure. And tonight, many people are asking a question that seemed impossible only weeks ago. Did 37 minutes of calm, direct truth on American television just mark the beginning of the biggest political storm of Donald Trump's presidency? Because if Carney's warnings prove correct, the consequences could reshape not just one administration, but the entire future of American leadership. The shockwaves from that interview did not stop when the cameras turned off. Within hours, political leaders, financial analysts, and global commentators were replaying the same 37 minutes again and again. The name Mark Carney was suddenly everywhere, and the pressure on President Donald Trump began to grow. Inside Washington, lawmakers from both parties started asking quiet questions, not about the interview itself, but about the deeper warning behind it. If global financial leaders are beginning to lose confidence in American stability, what does that mean for the future? Because markets move on confidence. Investors move on confidence. And once confidence begins to shake, it spreads faster than any political speech. Reports began appearing that foreign governments were already studying the interview carefully. Officials in Europe, financial leaders in Asia, trade partners across the world, all of them listening to Carney's calm explanation of risk. The most uncomfortable part for the White House was this. Carney never sounded angry. He never sounded political. He sounded concerned. Concerned about long-term stability. Concerned about growing global tension. Concerned that economic decisions made quickly in Washington could have ripple effects everywhere. And that calm tone made the warning feel even more serious. Because when experts whisper instead of shout, people listen closely. Now Washington is facing a new reality. The political fight is no longer only inside the United States. It is now part of a global conversation. And that conversation could shape the rest of Donald Trump's presidency. What happened next surprised even seasoned political observers. Instead of fading away after a news cycle, the interview began gaining more attention each day. Financial publications began publishing detailed analysis of Carney's comments. Economic experts started breaking down his warnings line by line. And suddenly, a simple television appearance had turned into a major political discussion. Supporters of President Donald Trump quickly pushed back. They argued that the American economy remains strong. They pointed to job numbers. They pointed to business growth. They said critics had predicted disaster before and been wrong. But critics of the administration saw something different. They saw a respected global voice raising concerns that many economists had been quietly discussing for months. And that is what made this moment powerful. Carney was not trying to win an election. He was explaining risk. Risk in global markets. Risk in international alliances. Risk in long-term economic confidence. The debate quickly spread across television networks, across newspapers, across social media. One simple question began appearing again and again. Is the United States becoming less predictable under the Trump presidency? That question matters deeply to the global economy because predictability creates stability, and stability creates investment. Without those things, uncertainty grows, and uncertainty is something markets fear more than almost anything else. The longer this debate continues, the more pressure builds inside Washington, because every headline brings the same issue back to the center of the conversation: trust. Behind closed doors, some political strategists are now worried about something even bigger: public perception. For years, President Donald Trump has built his political identity around strength. Strong leadership, strong economic growth, strong American influence. But Carney's interview quietly challenged that image. Not with accusations, not with attacks, but with questions. Questions about whether current policies are making the global system more fragile. Questions about whether allies are beginning to rethink their reliance on the United States. Questions about whether long-term economic confidence could weaken. Those questions are now spreading through political discussions across the country. And when voters start hearing the same concerns repeated by financial experts, business leaders, and international voices, perceptions can begin to change. Political history shows something important. The presidents rarely face danger from one speech. or one interview. What creates real political storms is repetition. The same warning repeated, the same doubts repeated, the same concerns repeated until they become part of the national conversation. Right now, that process may be beginning. Carney's words are no longer just a television moment. They are becoming a reference point, the moment people point back to and ask, was that the warning sign? International reaction may be the most important part of this story. Because the global economy is deeply connected, what happens in Washington does not stay in Washington. It affects trade deals, investment flows, currency markets, and diplomatic relationships. After the interview, several international commentators began discussing whether the world is slowly moving toward a new financial balance, one where power is spread more widely, where regional alliances grow stronger, where dependence on one single global leader becomes less dominant. For decades, the United States has been at the center of that system. But systems evolve. They shift slowly over time. And sometimes one moment, one warning, begins accelerating the change. Carney never said the United States would lose its influence. But he clearly suggested that influence depends on stability. And stability depends on trust. If trust weakens, the system begins to adjust. That adjustment does not happen overnight. But history shows that global power can shift faster than many leaders expect. Now, political analysts are watching closely to see how the Trump administration responds, because silence could allow doubts to grow. But confrontation could make the debate even louder. Either way, the conversation that started during those 37 minutes is not going away. Tonight, the real question is not about one interview. It is about what comes next. The presidency of Donald Trump is entering a new phase of scrutiny, not just from political opponents, but from economists, financial leaders, and international observers who are trying to understand the direction of the United States. The warning delivered by Mark Carney was calm, careful, and measured, but its impact has been enormous. 37 minutes of simple explanations, 37 minutes of clear warnings, 37 minutes that forced millions of viewers to think about the future of American leadership in a new way. History often shows that major political turning points do not always look dramatic at first. Sometimes they begin quietly. One conversation, one interview, one moment where a respected voice raises concerns that cannot easily be ignored. Right now, many people are asking whether that moment has just happened. Did the world witness the beginning of a serious challenge to the stability of the Trump presidency? Or will the administration prove its critics wrong and restore confidence quickly? The answer will unfold in the weeks and months ahead. But one thing is certain tonight. Those 37 minutes of television have already changed the conversation. And when the conversation changes, politics can change with it. Now tell us what you think. Did Mark Carney just deliver a warning the world needed to hear? Or was this moment overblown by critics of the president? Subscribe, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments.